If you're a regular on the Prepper Historian, you already know this channel isn't about watered-down stories or recycled military trivia. We go after the buried material, skills, tactics and decisions that shaped entire campaigns, yet rarely make it into mainstream documentaries. So, before we dive in, just make sure you're subscribed and sharing these deep dive breakdowns with other serious history buffs. You're about to hear one of the most unsettling, suppressed battlefield methods ever used. A technique so effective, so deceptively simple, that multiple armies eventually banned their own troops from teaching it to future generations. Not because it was unethical, war has worse, but because it made soldiers too effective in environments where control, noise discipline and psychological dominance mattered as much as bullets. This is the silent ambush technique they quietly phased out. Why the technique mattered for soldiers operating behind enemy lines. In the early 20th century, several infantry and reconnaissance units discovered that noise, not firepower, was the greatest liability during close-range operations. When you're 20 meters from an enemy camp, or, moving at night through forest lines, one snapped twig can collapse an entire mission. The silent ambush technique didn't rely on strength or theatrics. It relied on timing, positioning, and the calm willingness to get within arm's reach of another human being without alerting anyone else. Its core purpose was simple. Neutralize a sentry or scout with absolute silence, not low noise, not quick shot, not a muffled scuffle, but silence. Many forces taught some version of this, but, the refinement came from special reconnaissance groups during the First and Second World War. These men needed a reliable method that worked whether the enemy wore soft fatigue cloth or heavy greatcoats, whether they were standing still or, slowly pacing. The result was, a technique that bypassed the weaknesses in earlier hand-to-hand methods. So, how did the technique actually work in real missions? The silent ambush technique combined three principles: line of approach, instant destabilization, and airway disruption. The soldier approached from the diagonal rear, not directly behind, and never straight from the side. This angle made peripheral detection nearly impossible. Once in range, he used the left hand to clamp the enemy's chin and the right forearm to drive upward into the base of the skull. Now the goal wasn't to break the neck. Contrary to all that Hollywood nonsense, that's unreliable and, loud. Instead, the upward pressure forced the head back, cutting off the ability to inhale or shout. The soldier then pulled the sentry backward off balance, using gravity to keep momentum in his favour. When both fell, the attacker landed on top, maintaining airway control until the target lost consciousness. It required zero brute strength. The technique exploited anatomical leverage and surprise. Veterans wrote decades later that the first time they practiced it, they were shocked by how quickly dominance was achieved. In field reports, the method was credited with allowing small patrols to pass enemy security lines without a single rifle shot being fired. After the Second World War, command structures shifted. armies became more political, more standardized, more focused on broad-scale doctrine than small-unit improvisation. Quiet kill techniques were labelled as excessively lethal, morally problematic, or outside modern engagement principles. But honestly, the real reason is more practical. Modern forces didn't want new recruits thinking stealth kills were a standard tool. Guns, night optics and drones pretty much replaced the need for such up-close methods, and leadership feared the tactic encouraged aggressive behaviour not suited to contemporary rules of engagement. Another overlooked reason, and this is an important one, is that it was simply too effective. In insurgencies, peacekeeping operations, and civil conflicts, any technique that encourages silent neutralization becomes, well, a political liability. And so manuals were rewritten, certain lines deleted, and instructors told privately not to pass the old method down the line. So let's talk about how, well, a historian or a prepper might actually use knowledge of this method today. It's not just about the past. Understanding these techniques can genuinely help us prepare for unexpected situations, whether that's in research or, in real-life emergencies. Now, obviously, nobody here needs or even wants to actually use the technique. That's really not the reason we study it. Not at all. What truly matters in the end is what this method teaches us about situational awareness, movement discipline, and, the importance of using leverage rather than brute strength. Those are lessons that honestly never go out of style. First, learning how soldiers approach targets teaches modern preppers how to move silently through brush, snow, or debris fields. The diagonal approach path is still one of the safest angles for staying out of another person's peripheral view. If you're tracking wildlife, patrolling your property at night, or conducting a low-visibility movement, this same principle gives you the upper hand. Second, the technique's emphasis on destabilization over brute force is a powerful lesson in physics. Anytime you can off-balance an opponent, whether in a survival situation, a defensive encounter, or even controlling a panicked person, you gain control without escalation. For example, guiding someone backward by shifting their center of gravity is far safer than fighting strength with strength. Third, the psychological discipline required to perform a silent ambush teaches environmental control. Soldiers learned to time their steps with wind gusts, distant artillery, or even rustling foliage. As a prepper, applying that mindset means using background noise to mask your movement, whether you're entering a dark room, approaching a campfire, or trying to remain undetected in an emergency. Why this technique remains historically significant. Studying this band method gives us two rare lenses. One into the mindset of elite wartime reconnaissance units, and one into the politics of how military knowledge is curated or erased. The silent ambush technique wasn't removed because it failed. It was removed because it worked too reliably. And any time an institution erases something effective, historians should pay attention. It tells us what the command structure feared, valued, or wanted to reshape. For preppers, survivalists, and serious history enthusiasts, this isn't a relic. It's a reminder that, low-tech skills never go obsolete. Technology can fail. Batteries die. But the principles behind silent movement, controlled leverage, and disciplined timing, well, they remain relevant in any century. If you want more deep-cut historical breakdowns and practical survival lessons from the past, subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this video with someone who appreciates real, unfiltered military history.